The promotion. Caleb Mercer didn't celebrate the job offer the way most people would. He sat in his car outside the apartment complex, engine off, phone still glowing in his hand, reading the email again and again and again. Senior Accounts Operations Associate, full benefits, salary that finally crossed into comfortable. For the first time in 3 years, he exhaled. Inside the apartment, the smell of reheated pasta clung to the air. Emily Mercer was sitting cross-legged on the couch, laptop open, scrolling through something that made her smile before she even looked up. "Well?" she asked, already knowing the answer. "I got it," Caleb said, his voice low, careful, like the words might break if he said them too loud. Emily stood instantly, wrapped her arms around his neck, kissed him hard, once, twice, then pulled back with eyes already racing ahead of the moment. "This changes everything," she said. Caleb nodded. He wanted to believe that meant relief, stability, peace. But Emily didn't sit back down. She paced. "Do you know what this means in 5 years? 6 figures, promotions, access. Access to spreadsheets," Caleb said with a small laugh. Emily stopped pacing. "No," she said softly. "Access to money." That was the first time the word landed differently. Meridian Crest Holdings occupied 6 floors of a glass tower overlooking downtown St. Louis. Caleb learned the building quickly, learned the systems faster. He was good at patterns, good at numbers, good at noticing things other people didn't. That was why he was trusted. That was why no one watched him closely. Emily loved hearing about his days. Not the coworkers, not the office politics. She asked about systems, approvals, timing. How many signatures before a transfer clears? Who reviews corrections? What happens if something's off by, say, a few $1,000s? Caleb answered without thinking at first. Then he started hesitating. "Why do you ask?" he said one night, pushing his plate away. Emily shrugged. "I'm curious. You finally work somewhere real." "Real?" he asked. "Real money," she said, smiling. "Not paycheck to paycheck stuff." They had grown up poor. Emily never let him forget that. The moldy basement apartment, the maxed out cards, the nights choosing between groceries and gas. "We deserve more," she said often, "and no one just gives it to you." The first transfer wasn't stealing. It was a correction, a vendor overpayment routed through a temporary holding account. Caleb noticed it before audit review. He could have flagged it. Instead, he paused. The system allowed a manual redirect, if done before end-of-day reconciliation. He stared at the screen, heart loud in his ears. Emily's voice echoed in his head. "No one just gives it to you." He moved the decimal, just slightly, $900. The system accepted it. No alert, no email, no call. That night, Emily checked their bank account 3 times. She didn't smile. She beamed. "That's it?" she asked. "It's all I could do without—" "Caleb," she interrupted gently, touching his face. "This proves it works." He told himself it was temporary. He told himself he'd pay it back. He told himself companies like Meridian Crest wouldn't even feel it. But Emily didn't talk about paying it back. She talked about scale. "You're thinking small," she said one night, lying awake. "That's what keeps people stuck." "I could lose everything," Caleb whispered. Emily turned towards him. "So could I, if we stay like this forever." Months passed. The numbers grew. 5,000, 10, 15,000. Caleb learned how to bury discrepancies inside timing gaps, how to stagger transfers, how to make missing money look like delayed money. He stopped sleeping well. Emily started shopping better. New furniture, better clothes, weekend trips. Whenever he hesitated, she reminded him of the life they were building. "This isn't stealing, it's redistributing." Caleb stopped correcting her. The first sign of trouble came quietly, an internal memo, routine audit, nothing urgent, but Caleb's hands shook when he read it. That night, he told Emily they needed to stop. She stared at him, expression unreadable. "Stop?" she repeated. "Yes, just stop, before it's too late." Emily stood, walked to the window, then turned back. "You don't get to quit now." Caleb felt something cold settle in his chest. For the first time, he realized this wasn't about money anymore. It was about control, and the balance was already breaking. The quiet net. Caleb Mercer started arriving early, not because he was eager, not because he loved the work, but because the office was quieter before 8. Quiet meant control. Quiet meant fewer eyes. Quiet meant he could breathe for a few minutes before the day began pretending everything was normal. Meridian Crest Holdings smelled like polished stone and burnt coffee. The elevators opened into the same bland carpeted hallways every day, but Caleb still felt like he was stepping into a different version of his life each morning. A version where he wasn't a husband, wasn't a tenant, wasn't a guy who once worried about rent. Here, he was trusted. He hated that word now. By 9, his inbox was already stacked with small requests, vendor inquiries, billing clarifications. Normal noise, normal problems. He clicked through them fast, like speed could outrun guilt. Then, at 9:23, a calendar invite popped up. Process alignment. Mandatory, room 14B. Organizer, Lena Hart, internal controls. Caleb stared at the name. He knew Lena Hart by reputation. New hire, sharp, former federal contractor, rumor said, the kind of person who kept her pens aligned and her eyes even more aligned. He checked the attendee list. His team, his manager, 2 people from compliance, someone named Todd Carver from IT security. Caleb's mouth drew dry. He stood up anyway. Room 14B wasn't big. It was glass-walled, visible from the hallway, which made it feel like a display case. Caleb took a seat near the end of the table, angled so he could see the door. Lena Hart came in last. She was in her early 30s, hair pulled into a neat twist, a navy blazer that looked like it never wrinkled. She smiled politely, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Thanks for making time," she said. "This is not a crisis meeting, it's a standards meeting." Caleb exhaled slightly. Lena tapped her tablet and the room screen lit up with a simple slide. Quarterly controls refresh. "We're tightening workflows," she said, "not because something is wrong, but because it's easier to prevent problems than clean up after them." Todd Carver, IT security, nodded like he was approving a weather forecast. Lena continued, "Starting next week, any manual redirect over 5,000 requires secondary verification. New audit logs, new alerts." Caleb's stomach flipped. Secondary verification meant he couldn't slide money through timing gaps anymore. Alerts meant the system would shout the moment he touched anything he shouldn't. His manager, Brent Doss, raised a hand. "Is this coming down from corporate?" "It's coming down from reality," Lena replied, calm, almost pleasant. "Fraud trends are rising everywhere. Meridian Crest is not special." Caleb kept his face blank. Inside, his thoughts collided like cars. "Next week? That soon? How much do I need to fix before then?" Lena looked around the room. "Also," she said, "we're doing random spot checks on holding accounts." Caleb's pulse hit his ears. Random meant unpredictable. Unpredictable meant danger. Caleb texted Emily as soon as he got to his desk. "New controls starting next week. We need to pause." She responded almost instantly. "Pause or finish?" He stared at the screen. He typed back, "Finish what?" 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Then her message arrived. "The life we started. Don't panic, we just adjust." He wanted to throw his phone. Instead, he put it face down and tried to work. At lunch, Caleb didn't eat. He walked outside, sat on a bench near the fountain, and watched business people drift by with the casual confidence of those who weren't hiding crimes in spreadsheets. A voice broke through his spiral. "Caleb Mercer?" He looked up. A woman stood there holding a salad container, bright auburn hair, freckles, and a friendly face that didn't belong to the tower's sterile vibe. "Yeah," Caleb said carefully. "I'm Joni Pike, vendor relations. We've emailed a few times. I figured I'd say hi in person." "Oh," Caleb said, forcing a smile. "Yeah, hi." Joni sat on the far end of the bench, keeping a respectful distance. "Crazy meeting this morning," she said lightly. Caleb's shoulders tightened. "You were in it?" "Not in the room, but Lena's already making waves. Everyone's talking." Caleb swallowed. "Yeah, I guess." Joni took a bite, then glanced at him. "You okay? You look like you're about to pass out." "I'm fine," he lied. Joni studied him for a second, then nodded slowly, like she didn't believe him but wasn't going to push. "I used to work at a place where controls refresh meant someone got caught. Just saying, it's usually not random." Caleb's mouth went numb. "What do you mean?" Joni shrugged. "It's just, companies don't spend money tightening systems unless they think they need to. But hey, could be nothing. You didn't hear it from me." She stood, smiled again, and walked away. Caleb stayed on the bench, frozen. It's usually not random. That night, Caleb tried again. He waited until Emily had finished scrolling on her phone, waited until the TV was muted, waited until the apartment felt quiet enough to hold the truth. "We need to stop," he said. Emily didn't look up. "You already said that." "They're changing everything," he insisted. "Verification, alerts, spot checks. If I touch anything now, I'm exposed." Emily finally looked at him. Her eyes weren't angry. They were disappointed. "You're doing that thing," she said softly. "What thing?" Caleb asked. "The thing where you get scared and you want to crawl back into being average. Average is better than prison." Emily smiled like he'd made a cute joke. "Prison is for stupid people who get sloppy. You're not stupid." Caleb stared at her. "Emily, I'm not built for this." She stood and walked to him, close enough that he could smell her shampoo. "You're built for survival, and survival costs." Caleb stepped back. Emily's expression hardened just slightly. "You think I don't know what it's like to watch people with less talent live better because they're willing to take what they want?" Caleb shook his head. "That's not—"
Yes, it is. And you finally have a door open. If you slam it shut because you're nervous about a meeting, I swear to you, you'll regret it forever. Caleb felt trapped between two futures, both ugly. Emily moved past him, grabbed her laptop, opened it, and turned it toward him. On the screen was a budgeting spreadsheet. Except it wasn't budgeting, it was planning. A list of debts, a list of investments, and then, at the bottom, something labeled exit. Caleb frowned. What's that? Emily smiled. It's our endgame. One big pull. We disappear, we start over. Somewhere warm, somewhere new. Caleb's throat tightened. You've been planning an exit? Emily blinked like he was slow. Caleb, I've been planning our whole life. You think money just shows up and fixes things? Money is freedom. Money is the only way out. Caleb stared at the screen, then at her. How much? He whispered. Emily smiled. Enough. Enough that you'll never have to be scared again. The next morning, Caleb walked into Meridian Crest, feeling like a man walking into his own trial. At his desk, a new message waited. From Lena Hart. Subject, quick follow-up. His mouse hovered over it. His finger trembled. He clicked. Caleb, can you stop by my office at 10? Just a quick clarification on a holding account workflow. No details, no context, just his name and a time. Caleb stared at the email until the words blurred. Across the floor, people typed and laughed and lived their normal lives. Caleb checked the clock. 9:32, 28 minutes. He opened the system and pulled up the holding accounts. His transfers were buried, scattered, disguised, but if someone knew where to look. His hands moved faster than his thoughts. He started cleaning, adjusting, rerouting, closing loops. Every click was a prayer. At 9:58, he logged out, wiped his palms on his pants, and stood up. He walked towards Lena Hart's office, each step heavy. Halfway there, his phone buzzed in his pocket. Emily. Don't be weak today. Caleb didn't reply. He just kept walking, towards the woman with the calm eyes, the tidy blazer, and the quiet net she was tightening around him.
The clarification. Lena Hart's office didn't look like an interrogation room. That made it worse. Soft lighting, neutral art, a tidy desk with nothing personal on it except a ceramic mug that read, "Measure twice." The blinds were half open, letting the city bleed in through the glass like nothing bad ever happened inside tall buildings. Caleb stood in the doorway for a second too long. "Come in," Lena said, not looking up. "You're right on time." He stepped inside and sat across from her. The chair felt too low, like it had been designed to remind people who had control. Lena tapped at her tablet, then folded her hands. "This really is just a clarification," she said. "I don't want you nervous." Caleb nodded. He didn't trust his voice. She smiled slightly. "You manage holding accounts better than most people here. That's why I asked you." A compliment. A hook. "I'm happy to help," Caleb said. Lena pulled up a screen and rotated it toward him. A list of transactions filled the display. Dates, amounts, routing codes. "Walk me through how you usually resolve timing discrepancies," she said. Caleb leaned forward, heart pounding, and began explaining the official process. His voice sounded steady, almost professional, even as his mind screamed at him to watch every word. Lena listened carefully, eyes sharp. "And when the discrepancy isn't obvious?" she asked. "Then I flag it for review," Caleb said. "That part was true, sometimes." Lena nodded. "Interesting." She tapped again. A single transaction appeared on the screen. 9 months old. Caleb recognized it instantly. $900. His first. His lungs forgot how to work. "This one," Lena said, casual. "Why was it resolved internally instead of escalated?" Caleb stared at the screen, forcing his face not to betray him. "It was within tolerance. Low-misc vendor. Historical delays." Lena hummed softly like she was tasting the answer. "That's what the system says," she replied. "I just wanted to hear it from you." She locked the tablet and leaned back. "That's all. Thanks for your time, Caleb." He blinked. "That's it?" "For now," she said pleasantly. Caleb stood, nodded, and walked out on legs that barely belonged to him. He didn't go back to his desk. He went to the stairwell and sat on the concrete steps, head in his hands, trying not to throw up. "She knows," his brain whispered. "She knows and she's watching. But if she knew, why let him leave? Unless she wanted him to keep going." That evening, Emily was in a good mood. That scared him more than her anger ever had. "How'd the meeting go?" she asked lightly, pouring wine. "She asked about old transactions," Caleb said. Emily shrugged. "Of course she did. I pulled up the first one," he added. Emily froze for half a second, just enough for him to see it. "And?" she asked. "I lied." Emily relaxed, smiled, handed him a glass. "See, you're good at this." Caleb shook his head. "She's testing me." Emily took a sip, then passed the test. 2 days later, the audit notification arrived. Not random, targeted. Caleb's name was on it. Scope, holding accounts, past 12 months. He stared at the email until the words felt like a death sentence. He called Emily from the parking garage. "They're auditing me, specifically." Emily was quiet on the other end. "How long?" 2 weeks. She exhaled slowly. "Okay, then we move faster."
Move faster, Caleb snapped. They're digging through everything, which means you don't have time to hesitate, Emily said calmly. The exit plan, Caleb, now. He laughed, sharp and broken. You think stealing more while they're watching will help? I think half measures get you caught, Emily replied. Big moves disappear into noise. Caleb leaned against the concrete wall, feeling the cold seep into his bones. If I get caught, he said quietly, it's my name, my face, my prison. Emily's voice hardened. And if you don't do this, we lose everything anyway. I'm not going back to nothing. Caleb closed his eyes. He realized then that Emily wasn't afraid of the law. She was afraid of being ordinary. That night, Caleb didn't sleep. He opened the system from his laptop, using credentials he should never have used outside work. He created a temporary vendor profile. Clean, legit looking, just enough history to pass surface checks. Then he staged the transfer. One move, $280,000. It would route through 3 internal accounts before landing somewhere untraceable. If it worked, they were done. If it didn't, his finger hovered over the final authorization. His phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. You're not as invisible as you think. Caleb's heart slammed into his ribs. Another message followed. They're watching the exits first. Caleb's hands shook violently. He typed back, "Who is this?" 3 dots appeared, then disappeared. No reply. Caleb stared at the screen, caught between fear and momentum. Behind him, Emily slept peacefully, already dreaming of somewhere warm. Caleb looked at the authorization button again. He thought of the first $900, the lie, the smile, the net, and he clicked. The transfer completed. No alerts, no errors, no alarms. Caleb sat back, breathing hard. For a moment, just a moment, he felt free. Then his laptop chimed. New system notification. Transfer flagged for delayed verification. Status, pending. Caleb's stomach dropped. Delayed meant reviewed. Reviewed meant seen. Seen meant... His phone buzzed again. Same unknown number. You just made it worse. Caleb stared into the dark, realization crashing down on him. The exit Emily planned was the exact place the net was closing.
The watching floor. Caleb didn't go to work the next morning. He sat in his car in the parking lot, engine running, hands locked around the steering wheel, watching employees badge into Meridian Crest like nothing in the world had changed. Inside his pocket, his phone felt heavier than usual. Pending. That word sat in his head like a loaded gun. He finally forced himself out of the car and into the building, the lobby's polished marble reflecting a version of him that looked normal, clean, professional, innocent. He wasn't any of those things. By 10 o'clock, the watching started. Caleb noticed it first in the small ways. A new camera mounted above the hallway near accounting, a pop-up banner on his workstation announcing Enhanced Activity Logging Enabled, IT walking the floor with clipboards, pretending to check cables. Todd Carver passed his desk twice. Todd never passed desks. Caleb's manager, Brent Doss, stopped by with coffee he didn't offer. Everything okay? Brent asked, smiling too much. Yeah, why? Oh, no reason, Brent replied. Just busy time. Busy time meant audit time. Audit time meant pray time. At lunch, Caleb didn't leave the building. He ate a protein bar in the break room, eyes locked on his phone. No message from the unknown number, no update on the transfer. Just silence. That scared him more than alarms ever could. Across the room, 2 analysts whispered near the vending machine. When Caleb stood to throw away his wrapper, they went quiet. Paranoia crept in fast. Do they know? Or do I just look guilty now? His email pinged. From Internal Audit. Subject, follow-up documentation request. They wanted explanations, screenshots, justifications. He forwarded it to Emily. Her reply came back in under a minute. Stick to the story. You've already won if they're asking instead of accusing. Won. That word tasted wrong. That evening, Caleb told Emily about the cameras. They're tightening everything, he said. I think they're tracking me specifically. Emily barely looked up from her laptop. They'd need proof, she said. I think they're building it. Emily sighed, annoyed. You're spiraling. I got a warning, Caleb said. That got her attention. What kind of warning? An anonymous text before the transfer. Emily's eyes sharpened. You didn't tell me that. I didn't know what it meant. And you still pushed the money through? She asked. Yes. Emily stood slowly. So someone out there is pretending to help you, and you're scared of them? Caleb frowned. Pretending? Think about it, she said. If they really wanted to help you, they'd go to the company or the police, not text you like a movie villain. Caleb hesitated. What if they're watching too? Emily crossed her arms. Then they want something. What? Emily's gaze drifted to the kitchen counter, to the notebook she'd started months ago, numbers scribbled in her precise handwriting. Leverage, she said quietly. The next morning, Caleb walked into a trap. His access badge still worked, his computer still turned on, but his permissions were different, slower, restricted. He opened a report he'd used 100 times before. Access denied. His heart hammered. At 11, Lena Hart appeared beside his desk like she'd materialized from thin air. Walk with me, she said pleasantly. Not a question.
They moved through the office toward a conference room Caleb had never used. No windows, no glass walls, just solid wood. The door closed behind them. Lena sat across from him, folded her hands. "This is still not an accusation," she said. Caleb swallowed. "It feels like one. That's because you're under review, not investigation, yet. Yet." She slid a printed page across the table, a timeline, highlighted transactions, his transactions. "Someone flagged a pattern," Lena said. "Not a system, a person." Caleb's voice came out thin. "Who?" Lena studied him carefully. "That's what I wanted to ask you." Caleb laughed once, sharp and humorless. "You think I flagged myself?" "You think," Lena said, "that someone close to the activity wants distance from it." Caleb's stomach dropped. "You think someone's trying to blame me?" "I think someone is positioning themselves, and you're the obvious place for gravity to land." Caleb thought of Emily, of her spreadsheets, of the exit column. Lena leaned forward slightly. "Here's the thing, Caleb. The entry you initiated 3 nights ago, it didn't just get flagged." Caleb's pulse spiked. "It got mirrored. Every step, every credential, every device." Caleb's mouth went dry. "And whoever's watching," Lena added, "is being very patient." That night, Caleb confronted Emily. "Did you talk to anyone?" Emily looked up slowly. "About what?" "The money, the plan, anyone." Her eyes narrowed. "Why would I do that?" "Because someone flagged me, not a system, a person." Emily laughed softly. "You think I turned you in? I think you might have tried to protect yourself." Emily stood, anger flashing. "Everything we have is because of me pushing you, and everything we're about to lose is because you wouldn't let me stop." Caleb snapped. Silence stretched between them. Emily's voice dropped. "You're not thinking clearly. Fear is making you paranoid." Caleb shook his head. "No, fear is making me honest." Emily grabbed her laptop and opened it, shoving the screen toward him. The exit column was gone, replaced with something new, contingency. "What's that?" Caleb asked. Emily's eyes were cold. "Options," she said, "in case you fold." Caleb felt the last thread of trust snap. His phone buzzed again that night. Unknown number. "You're closer to the truth than you think." Caleb typed back. "Is it her?" The reply came slowly. "She thinks she's smarter than the net." Caleb stared at the message, dread settling deep. For the first time, he realized something worse than prison was possible, being sacrificed.
The contingency. Caleb stopped sharing his thoughts with Emily. That was the first real shift. Not the raised voices, not the sleepless nights, not the quiet panic humming under every conversation. It was the silence. The way he started editing himself mid-sentence. The way he watched her the same way he watched audit emails now, for intent. Emily noticed. She always noticed. "You're pulling away," she said one morning, standing in the doorway as he tied his shoes. "I'm tired," Caleb replied. "That's not tired," she said. "That's fear." Caleb didn't answer. He left before she could say more. At Meridian Crest, the walls felt closer. Internal audit now occupied 2 temporary offices on Caleb's floor, boxes of files stacked like barricades. People spoke more carefully, laughed less. Caleb's calendar was suddenly full. Clarifications, documentation walkthroughs, process recollections. Each meeting felt less like work and more like memory mining. They weren't asking what happened, they were asking who decided. Lena Hart remained calm throughout it all. No accusations, no pressure, just questions that circled tighter every day. Who else had visibility on this? Who suggested this workaround? Who benefited from this adjustment? Caleb answered carefully. "I handled it. My decision. No one else." Each answer was a shield and a lie. The anonymous messages became more frequent, not warnings anymore. Guidance. They're mapping intent now. They need motive, not just movement. Watch who looks clean. Caleb read them in stairwells, in bathroom stalls, in the quiet seconds before meetings started. Whoever this was knew too much about the systems, about the audit process, about him. He finally replied with the question that had been burning in his chest. "Why are you helping me?" The response took hours. When it came, it was short. "I'm not helping you. I'm watching you choose." That night, Caleb searched Emily's laptop. It wasn't planned, it wasn't strategic, it was instinct. She was in the shower. The laptop was open, logged in. He told himself he'd just look at the budget, but his fingers moved on their own. A folder on the desktop caught his eye. Personal. Inside it was another folder. Legal. Caleb's stomach tightened. He opened it. PDFs, articles, notes, employee liability and financial misconduct, plea agreements, when cooperation matters, spousal immunity, limits and exceptions. Caleb sat down hard on the couch. She'd been preparing, not to run, to survive, without him. When Emily came out, towel wrapped around her hair, she saw his face. "You went through my computer," she said flatly. Caleb held up the laptop. "How long?" Emily didn't deny it. "Long enough," she replied. "You were planning to cut me loose," he said. Emily sighed like he was being dramatic. "I was planning for reality, which is what you refused to do. Reality is you're the one with access. You're the one who moved the money. I didn't force your hands." Caleb laughed bitterly. "You pushed every step. "And you took them," she shot back. "Don't rewrite this now." The silence that followed was final. They both knew it. The next morning, Caleb received an email marked confidential. From Internal Audit, Lena Hart. "Caleb, if you have information that contextualizes recent activity, now is the time to share it. Cooperation matters. LHA." He stared at the screen. Then his phone buzzed. Unknown number. She's already talking to someone, not the company yet. Caleb's heart pounded. "Who?" he typed. The reply came fast. "An attorney, one who specializes in being adjacent to crimes." Caleb closed his eyes. Emily wasn't waiting to be questioned. She was waiting to testify. That night, Caleb made his own contingency. He printed emails, saved logs, screen-recorded system walkthroughs, every message Emily had ever sent him about money, pressure, scale, exit. He didn't sleep. At dawn, he sat at the kitchen table across from Emily. "I'm not protecting you anymore," he said. Emily sipped her coffee calmly. "I wouldn't expect you to." "I'm telling them everything," Caleb said. "Not just what I did, why." Emily smiled slightly. "Good. That makes it cleaner." Caleb frowned. "Cleaner for who?" "For the story," she said. "There's always a story. Yours just needs to be believable." Caleb realized then that Emily had already detached. He was no longer her partner. He was her liability. At 10 a.m., Caleb walked into Lena Hart's office voluntarily. "I need to talk," he said. Lena gestured to the chair. "I was hoping you would." Caleb sat down, hands steady now. "There's more you need to know," he said, "and I'm done carrying it alone." Lena watched him cheerfully. "Once you start, you don't get to stop." Caleb nodded. "I know," he replied. "Neither does she." The offer. Lena Hart didn't interrupt. That surprised Caleb more than anything else. He spoke for nearly 40 minutes, voice low, measured, the way people talk when they know the words are irreversible. He explained the pressure, the conversations, the escalation. He didn't dramatize Emily. He didn't villainize her either. He simply told the truth. When he finished, the room felt smaller. Lena closed her notebook. "Thank you," she said. "That was thorough." Caleb stared at the table. "I know I'm guilty." "Yes," Lena replied. "But guilt has degrees. Intent matters. Influence matters." She leaned forward. "And cooperation," she added, "matters a great deal." Caleb looked up. "So what happens now?" Lena exhaled slowly. "Now it stops being internal." By noon, Meridian Crest's legal counsel was involved. By 3, federal investigators were looped in. By 5, Caleb's badge no longer opened doors. He was escorted out quietly through a side exit, like a shame the company didn't want photographed. Emily texted him as he stepped onto the sidewalk. "We need to talk." Caleb didn't respond. The anonymous number buzzed again that night. "You did the right thing. For you." Caleb typed back. "Who are you?" This time, the reply came with a name. Todd Carver. Caleb froze. IT security. The man who'd passed his desk twice a day. "You flagged me," Caleb typed. "I flagged the pattern," Todd replied. "You were just the clearest signal." "Why warn me?" The typing dots lingered. "Because I've seen this before," Todd wrote, "and the one who pushes never falls first." Caleb's chest tightened. Emily didn't come home that night. She didn't come the next day either. What came instead was a letter. Typed, precise. She was staying with a friend. She had retained counsel. She suggested all communication go through attorneys for clarity. No apology, no anger, just distance. Caleb sat on the couch holding the paper, realizing he'd lost his job, his marriage, and his future, and still felt relief. The interview room downtown was nothing like Lena's office. Fluorescent lights, hard chairs, a recorder on the table. 2 investigators, calm, methodical. They asked Caleb to tell the story again. He did. They showed him messages. He confirmed them. They asked about Emily. He answered carefully, not to protect her, not to destroy her, just to be accurate. When it was over, one of them leaned back. "You're looking at charges," he said plainly, "but cooperation reduces exposure." Caleb nodded. "I understand. You may be asked to testify." Caleb didn't hesitate. "I will." Emily's attorney contacted his 2 days later. They wanted a meeting. Caleb declined. That was his first real choice in months. Weeks passed. The story leaked, as stories always do. A mid-level financial employee, misuse of company funds, spousal pressure mentioned in vague terms. Emily's name didn't appear. Not yet. Caleb's did. Friends stopped calling. Family asked careful questions. Caleb answered fewer of them. One afternoon, Lena Hart called. "They're moving forward," she said. "Criminal charges. Formal." Caleb closed his eyes. "What about her?" Lena paused. "She underestimated the paper trail," she said, "and she overestimated how clean she looked." Caleb exhaled slowly. "So she's not walking away." "No, just not running." That night, Caleb walked alone through the city. He thought about the first transfer, the $900, how small it had felt, how enormous it had become. His phone buzzed one last time from Todd. This part hurts the most, but it's where the lying stops.
Caleb typed back, "Does it ever get quiet?" The reply came a minute later. "Eventually, when you stop trying to outrun it." Caleb put the phone away and kept walking. For the first time in a long while, he wasn't moving toward an exit, he was moving toward whatever came next.
The public record. The indictment arrived on a Thursday. Caleb learned about it the same way the rest of the city did, through a notification banner on his phone, sandwiched between weather alerts and a grocery app reminder. Former Meridian Crest employee charged in financial misconduct case. His name was spelled correctly. That hurt more than it should have. He sat at the small kitchen table, the same one where Emily had once mapped out their exit, and read the article slowly. It mentioned misuse of funds, internal controls, cooperation with investigators. It mentioned a spousal relationship under review. It did not mention love. The court date was set quickly. Too quickly for Caleb's nerves to catch up. His public defender, a tired man named Ron Feldman, explained the process in a voice that suggested he'd done this hundreds of times. Plea first, then testimony. You help them, they help you. That's the math. "And my wife?" Caleb asked. Ron adjusted his glasses. "She's not your wife in this case. She's a potential co-defendant." The word felt sharp. Potential. Emily appeared 3 days later, not in person, on television. She stood outside a courthouse with her attorney, face composed, voice steady, telling reporters she had no knowledge of any criminal activity and that she was shocked and betrayed. Betrayed. Caleb turned the TV off. The next message from Emily didn't go through lawyers. It went through him. "You're destroying us," she wrote. "You don't have to say anything else." Caleb stared at the screen for a long time. Then he deleted it. Testimony preparation was brutal. They made him walk through every decision, every moment of hesitation, every justification. They played recordings, showed texts, paused when his voice cracked. The prosecutor, a woman named Denise Walker, watched him carefully. "Why didn't you stop earlier?" she asked. Caleb swallowed. "Because stopping meant admitting I'd already crossed the line." She nodded. "And because someone didn't want you to." Caleb didn't correct her. Emily was indicted the following week. Accessory, conspiracy, obstruction. Her lawyer's statement changed overnight. No more confidence. Now it was misunderstanding, miscommunication, mutual decisions, shared blame. Caleb wasn't surprised. He'd been carrying it alone long enough. Court day arrived with cold clarity. Caleb sat at the witness table, hands folded, breathing slow. He didn't look at Emily when she entered. He didn't need to. He could feel her presence like pressure. When he spoke plainly. No anger, no revenge. Just facts. The pressure, the planning, the contingency. Emily stared at him, eyes hard, calculating, as if still trying to adjust the story in real time. But stories don't bend under oath. They break. When it was over, Caleb stepped outside into the sunlight. He didn't feel free. He felt emptied. But the noise inside him, the constant calculation, the fear, the pretending, was gone. For the first time since the first $900, there was nothing left to hide. That night, Caleb slept. Really slept. No alarms, no pending notifications, just quiet. The weight of silence. Sentencing took longer than Caleb expected. Weeks stretched into months, filled with paperwork, evaluations, quiet meetings in beige rooms where everyone spoke carefully, as if words themselves carried liability. Emily moved fast. Her legal strategy shifted from denial to mitigation, mental health assessments, financial dependence arguments, claims of misunderstanding. The narrative softened her edges, tried to make ambition sound like confusion. Caleb watched it happen from the outside. He wasn't angry, he was tired. Ron Feldman called one afternoon. "They're recommending reduced time," Ron said. "Cooperation counts. No guarantees, but it could have been worse." "How much worse?" Caleb asked. Ron hesitated. "Enough that you wouldn't be asking that question." Caleb nodded. "What about Emily?" Ron sighed. "She's fighting, harder than you did." That didn't surprise him. Emily had never believed in surrender. The sentencing hearing was quieter than the trial. No cameras, no reporters, just a judge with tired eyes and a stack of files thick enough to bend the desk. Caleb stood when instructed. The judge spoke slowly. "You violated trust, not just corporate trust, but personal integrity." Caleb nodded. "But you also accepted responsibility," the judge continued, "and you assisted in uncovering broader misconduct." The gavel rested heavy in the man's hand. "Your sentence reflects both." When it was done, Caleb felt something unexpected, relief. Not because it was light, because it was certain. Emily's hearing came later. Caleb wasn't required to attend. He went anyway. She looked smaller, not weaker, just contained. Her confidence had narrowed into something sharp and defensive. When the judge spoke of manipulation and intent, Emily's jaw tightened. When the sentence was read, she didn't react. She simply nodded, still calculating. The months that followed were quiet. Caleb worked where he could. Warehouse shifts, inventory work, anything that paid enough and didn't ask questions. Some nights he dreamed of spreadsheets. Other nights he didn't dream at all. Both were progress. One afternoon, a letter arrived, handwritten, from Emily. No legal language, no strategy, just words. She wrote about loneliness, about fear, about how she never meant for it to go that far. Caleb read it twice. Then he folded it carefully and placed it in a drawer. He didn't respond. Some silences weren't punishments, they were boundaries. Caleb started therapy. It felt strange at first, talking about numbers like they were emotions, but slowly the connection made sense. Control, security, escape. All the same thing, wearing different faces. A year passed. The world moved on. The story faded. Caleb's name stopped appearing in search results. That mattered more than he expected. One evening, walking home, Caleb passed the old Meridian Crest building. Lights still on, people still working late, money still moving. He felt no pull toward it, just distance, and a strange gratitude that he'd been forced to stop. The space after. Caleb's release didn't come with a moment. No gate swinging open, no dramatic sunrise. Just paperwork, a nod from a guard, and a walk down a hallway that smelled like disinfectant and old time. Outside, the air felt unreal, too wide, too free. He stood there for a minute, unsure where to put his hands, his thoughts, his past. Then he walked. Re-entry was quieter than prison. That surprised him. No one yelled, no one watched him closely, no one cared enough to be suspicious. He rented a small room above a mechanic shop. The walls were thin, the bed creaked, the window faced a brick wall with faded graffiti that read, "Stay sharp." It felt honest. He took a job unloading trucks at night. Physical work, measurable work. Boxes didn't lie to you. They either moved or they didn't. Sometimes, when he was exhausted enough, the numbers stopped chasing him. Emily wrote again, this time shorter. She said she was appealing, that she still believed things could have been different, that she hoped he understood her fear. Caleb read the letter once, then he shredded it. Not out of anger, out of clarity. A social worker asked him one afternoon what he wanted next. Caleb thought about it longer than he should have. "I want to stop running," he finally said. She smiled gently. "That's a good start." He volunteered twice a week at a financial literacy program. Not spreadsheets, stories. People who'd made one bad decision and watched it multiply. People who thought shortcuts were exits. Caleb never preached. He just explained momentum, how small choices don't stay small, how pressure doesn't excuse direction. Some listened, some didn't. That wasn't his responsibility anymore. One evening, Todd Carver reached out. They met for coffee in a place that smelled like burnt beans and second chances. "You did more than most," Todd said. "Most people double down." Caleb stared into his cup. "I still did it." Todd nodded. "Yeah, but you stopped." Caleb realized that mattered. A year after his release, Caleb stood in front of a mirror and barely recognized the man looking back. Thinner, older, quieter, but solid. No calculations behind the eyes. No contingency plans humming in the background. Just presence. On his walk home that night, he passed a couple arguing loudly on the sidewalk. Money, rent, the future. Caleb slowed, listening, then kept walking. Not his fight, not his story. That night, he slept with the window open. City noise drifting in. No alarms, no audits, no lies waiting for morning. Just space, and the understanding that the hardest part wasn't paying for what he'd done, it was learning to live without the person he'd been while doing it.